I don't know if I decide to upload this video or not, but it's just a thought that came to my mind, and it's a true story of something that happened, and perhaps, I could give a message to help somebody else out there. How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Mike here. Today we're going to talk about a real life experience, something the late Kobe Bryant taught me. For those of you, except perhaps you live under a rock, you know about Kobe Bryant, and more particularly, early 2020, unfortunately, he passed away in a helicopter crash. For me, being a sports fan, it was devastating in that sense, or particularly being a basketball fan, but also being an aviator. Every time something as devastating like that happens in our industry or in our community, it basically reminds you of your own mortality. Because I get up in the air also. I have friends and loved ones who get up in the air all the time, and we always pray that we are on our best behavior, that we get up, we make good decisions, we fly safe, we touch down safely. So when this crash happened, it took me personally, some time to process. No matter what you think about the families that died or Kobe Bryant himself, and that's the thing, when the media put out this story, they mostly talked about Kobe because he's the famous person, but 5 or 6 other people also perished in that crash, and these were moms, kids, dads, and again, the whole thing was just devastating. But this is what I learned. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday. I was at church, and I was at a program after church where I was teaching this financial class, which is partly what I talk about on this channel. We had a program where I was just, talking to folks about, what they can do about retirement and investing and all that spiel. As soon as we were done, I saw people looking at their phones, and we're living 2021. Everything spreads through social media. I'm still in a jolly mode because we had done this really cool exercise, and I'm excited to tell people about investment. Someone just spilled it out. They're like, yeah, it's spreading right now. Kobe Bryant has died. And I was like, wait, what? Because again, as a sports fan, you see even folks who retire all the time, you see them on the court, they come to games and whatnot. If Kobe Bryant was sick or something was happening with him, usually the whole world would know because he's a pretty famous person, right? But when someone showed me on their phone, and it was a helicopter crash.
NBA legend Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter, and 7 others have been killed in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California. This was the 41-year-old's private helicopter. This was often his mode of transportation to and from the Staples Center as well when he was playing.
The first thing that hit me was the fact that it was aviation related. Because guys, if you watch my other channel, Mojo Grip, I am the absolute evangelist for flying and for more people to get into flying, because I love it. It's a passion of mine. I really do want more people in the cockpit to learn how to fly, to build careers out of it. There's just awesome opportunities with it. So it's never a good taste when you hear about anyone lose their lives over something that you love doing or something that you do often. So that was the first blow, like, holy crap. And I'm reading the article, and this was a TMZ article. TMZ usually, I believe their stories. They usually don't post, something that's fake news. I remember just like having a moment there, like, holy crap, this person and their families woke up normally that day, and they were going to a basketball game, is what I recall was the case, and they never thought, I get into this vehicle and that's gonna be it. After I heard the news, the first thing that hit me was this being a tragedy in aviation. The fact that this was a helicopter crash, something that you all may not know, being an aviator myself, also knowing other pilots in the community. For me personally, every time I read of a crash, it hits me. It really hits home, even if I don't know the person, because you realize that this thing that you love doing or that you enjoy doing, and you preach to everyone to get involved in, when someone loses their lives over it, it hits home in a way. Also, in a way, it reminds me of my own mortality. Now, I don't mean to be morbid, but think about it. Like, for all of us, most of us drive cars or motorcycles, and this is a car crash, fatal crashes that happens almost every single day. Most of the time when you see news about, someone dying in a car crash or whatever, you don't really think about, okay, well, that could be me, or I'm driving a car too, this could happen. You don't think like that. When a crash happens in the aviation, more particularly the civil aviation community, for me at least, it kind of reminds me the fact that, okay, you're also vulnerable to something happening. You also do this thing, obviously fly safe and be safe. And I also think about all of my friends and my loved ones in this community. So those two things happened later on. Now initially I found out that, Kobe Bryant had died at the age of 40, and then I later found out that no, it wasn't just him. There were other people on board of that flight, and also his daughter. His daughter perished with him in that crash. Also, the pilot, believe it or not, it was a friend of a friend. The pilot community is so small. Oftentimes, you would know someone, or someone who knows somebody. And rest in peace to all of them. So finding out all these details, but more particularly when I found out that, Kobe's daughter was on that flight. Also, it wasn't just her. Someone else's daughter was also on that flight. That hit home for me because these were just young girls. At the time of this event, my daughter was only 3 months old. So you can imagine the drive home from church was it was a downer. And I kept thinking to myself, why am I even mourning for this? Or why am I mourning for this guy? Because when I think about it, even as a fan of basketball, I was not a fan of Kobe. I didn't know him personally in the real world, but there were connections, those that I've mentioned, being an aviator myself, and then the fact that he was also a dad. And then I later found out that he also had a small child. He recently became a new dad with another daughter. All of that was just hitting so hard because, again, I was a new dad as well. This is what I learned that day. And I remember going home to my girls and just like holding my daughter so tightly because I couldn't imagine. It really took me to a dark place. But what this whole thing taught me, and this was like days gone by, even weeks, because new stuff started coming up on the media. And I thought to myself, just as a basketball fan and just someone who's curious, I started just researching on this man named Kobe Bryant, who again has been like a lifer in basketball, which I watch all the time, but I didn't really know much about him. So here's some of the fun facts that I found out about Kobe. The fact that he was drafted into the NBA so young. He was 17 years old. Okay, straight out of high school. He went from being this teenager into being a professional. You imagine this guy starts his career at 17, and he worked all the way till he was 37. He retired as an NBA player at 37. Now, if you researched about Kobe Bryant, or you talked to somebody who knew him or who worked with him, you would know that, for one, he was talented. I mean, his success as a ball player would not be possible if the talent wasn't there, but he also had a crazy work ethic, right? If you even listen to some of his speeches and videos and interviews that he's done, this guy's work ethic was insane. And he was also known to have a threshold for pain that was just beyond human comprehension to some. So he was known to be able to just absorb pain in his body, and he had a very strong work ethic. His whole mentality, well, that's why they coined Mamba mentality, was get it by all means necessary. So he was always this, I gotta climb on top of that mountain no matter what. So you think of someone who has stretched themselves from the age of 17, didn't experience, I guess, what the average person would experience all as a teenager and through their 20s, but then of course the average person doesn't experience a life of a Kobe Bryant. But what I'm trying to get at is the fact that he started working at 17. worked hard. Obviously, he's the epitome of what you would call successful. Successful both as a professional in his profession, he was regarded as one of the best, but also successful financially. He was able to make a lot of money, so he was comfortable. But you think about that for a moment, right? You've worked all your life from 17 to 37, and then you finally retire. Now, Kobe was also a husband and a dad. Imagine, I just imagine, this is me thinking, like I just imagine him working all those years and being on the road and always probably saying, you know, when I'm done, when I finally hang my jersey, I will spend all the time with my family and my loved ones. 'Cause, I mean, think about any ball player. That could be basketball, any athlete. These guys are always on the road, so they don't have the normal life like we all do. And the similarities that I see with that, although I'm not some sports superstar, my livelihood also takes me outside of the house. I'm on the road a lot. When I think of my mentality before this moment, I was always thinking, work hard, by all means necessary, go after your goals, damn, you know, your relationships, damn. And that was always my mentality. You know, you sleep when you die. Everything else can wait. Even time with your wife, she can wait. She understands. And this is everything we tell ourselves as entrepreneurs, is that those who are around us who either require or demand our attention, they can wait, because obviously they love us and they can understand that this career, this thing that you've chosen to do your life or to do with your life, your partner or your loved ones can understand. But once you're done, because one day you plan to finally hit the jackpot or be done and retire, whether it be at 40 or that be at 60 or 80, you plan to, you know, hang your jersey one day, and then you can finally get to spend those nice time with your loved ones. Now I think of a Kobe Bryant, who perhaps this may have been his life, and worked all those years away from home, has a wife, has daughters, and then he retires. And then he's finally getting to spend all of this beautiful time with his family, with his girls, and boom, gone. And I thought to myself, like, I just imagine if someone in those shoes could see the future, like, hey, if I only had this much time, would I do things differently? Now, I think everybody's situation is different. I'm just speaking from my own personal, what's happening up here when I think about that whole picture. I can relate to this guy on so many levels. The same perspective about life and setting goals and going after goals, even neglecting loved ones and time with loved ones, that was always my thing. They understand, so they should leave me alone and let me go after what I need to go after and achieve success. And I ignore things, I ignore time with them, because I'm like, one day I don't have to do this anymore and I can spend all the time in the world. Again, this is us assuming that tomorrow is promised, and you never thought, okay, you know, by the time I hit this age or this early, something can happen. Even on this channel, whenever I talk about wealth building, usually that's prefaced on the fact that, yeah, you're gonna work a bunch of years and leave, and then grow old and then leave stuff behind. Part of that journey is also the transfer of those wealth. And someone like a Kobe Bryant obviously did the right things, where he already had a trust in place. So guess what? Once he's gone, there's no fight or anything over his estate, because there's a trust in place that transfers that wealth to his family members, to his wife and children. But really what he taught me, as I've gotten to know more about him after his passing, is the fact that I don't have to wait until retirement or until I get a big break before I spend some time with my girls. I need to spend time with them now while I'm doing this. Matter of fact, they need to come first before everything else. That's how, honestly, since 2020, that's how I've tried to structure my life, where I'm not always on the road. I'm not always thinking, working, and this next thing I need to accomplish or conquer. You know, my girls come first in my thought. That's what I really want to push out and encourage all of you out there, mostly all you entrepreneurs, because we all have that muscle that tells us that, hey, You got to keep going. You got to keep going, and you have to neglect everyone and everything else. Even if that's not your intention, you're a nice person, but naturally that's what happens. This journey of entrepreneurship, it takes a lot out of you, and it takes a lot more time and dedication than most average people will want to give, and it does cost you something. My hope is that it's never too late for any of us to start making time and effort with our loved ones, and we don't have to wait. Literally, you don't have to wait. And this doesn't also mean that you neglect your work or your goals and things that you set out to do. You just have to get on that train of work-life balance. And there's no such thing as work-life balance. I know I've heard that myth a lot, but for those of us who are walking this path, it's a balancing. It's a lifetime project. That's what Kobe Bryant taught me. My hope is that I'm able to stick to this regimen, put my girls first, while I'm still trying to accomplish my dreams. And that's the message I want to leave you with today. I hope you get it. Okay, until next time, I'll catch you on the next video. Peace.